Ladies and gentlemen, taking the stage, we're going to have for you tonight the Rendezvous All-Stars, starring Wayman Tisdale.
St. Louis disc jockey Rick Sanbourne lives for smooth jazz.
And welcome to the stage right now, Jonathan Butler.
Sanborn hosts smooth jazz concerts like this one at the Pageant Theater as a way to promote the genre. He's also trying to fill the void created in 2005 when the only station in town with a smooth jazz format dropped it.
I listen to smooth jazz. I ache to play smooth jazz for the populace because I just found that the response from smooth jazz listeners equals my enthusiasm. I'm Rick Sanbourne. Thanks very much for listening. We got more.
Since 1986, Rick Sanbourne has spent most of his radio career in St. Louis. He's been behind the microphone as a DJ, talk show host, or newsman in what seems like every other station in the market. Sanborn and John Chase played country music as the team of Chase and Sanborn at what used to be KUSA. Here they are with an up-and-coming Shania Twain. He met legendary Rolling Stones bass guitarist Bill Wyman during his days on oldie station KLOU. Remember Rockin' Ricky? But the job that most satisfied his music passions was at the former smooth jazz station WSSM.
I had the opportunity to be the morning man for a little more than 2 years before a decision was made by their corporate owners to no longer present that format. Still to this day, I'll hear the newest smooth jazz released by a Richard Elliott or a Dave Koz, and because at this point we don't have a radio station to play it, I'm pained because I really want to share that music with an audience.
For now, his outlet is the series of smooth jazz concerts that bear his name. It all started while Sanborn was still at WSSM. That's when he was approached by a Clayton-based promoter of jazz cruises.
And he came to me and said, I can get a few of the artists that play on my ships when they take these 7-day cruises to various ports to come to town to do a couple of concerts. He says, but now that there's no smooth jazz radio station in town, I don't have a way to promote it, and of course we want people to know about it, we want people to appreciate the music, and the economic standpoint is they want people to buy seats. So he asked whether or not I would spearhead the promotion of these shows, and we would use them as a two-pronged tool. The number one tool would be to, of course, let smooth jazz listeners know that despite not having a terrestrial radio station in town playing smooth jazz, that there was still an interest. And then tied right to that, to show that if people bought tickets and showed up for live performances, there was obviously still an interest in smooth jazz even a year or so after there was no more radio station. And that may catch the attention of potential investors who then may say, you know what, let's find a frequency for this smooth jazz format.
The first Rick Sanbourne Smooth Jazz Party was staged in the summer of 2005. After the first two concerts sold out, Sanbourne knew he'd struck a chord with his target audience. He's also gotten to know some of the artists he admires so much.
Jonathan Butler is from South Africa and has many causes that he's involved with.
St. Louis, everything's gonna be alright.
He uses a lot of the extra profits that he makes from his touring schedule and his recording schedule to help in particularly the AIDS epidemic in Africa. Here is Wayman Tisdale following his passion. I mean, here's somebody who already had a very successful career as an NBA star, and during the time would entertain his teammates by playing his guitar. And he said he was at first very afraid of making that career change, and you can see how that is. And said the first couple of times that he played, he, like Miles Davis, would have his back to the audience because he was so afraid to turn around and see the audience reaction. And then, eventually, when people were giving him the accolades that he deserved, he started having fun with it, and now it's turned into Wayman Tisdale, the party man. And the keyboardist on the tour was Brian Simpson, who is the band member with Dave Koz, and Dave Koz recognized Simpson's talents and said, you know what, you got to put out your own CD. Kirk Whalum, who's a sax player, played on the Bodyguard soundtrack for Whitney Houston, and the song I Will Always Love You, that's his sax break. The thing about smooth jazz artists is they've always been in a background, a supporting position. I just thought that it was time for the musicians who were in the background to take the forefront and really get the respect that they deserve, because you can put a great vocalist on stage, but without that sort of backup band that makes them sound so professional, it just doesn't really work.
And speaking of vocalists,
I'll close my eyes to everyone about you. And when I do, I will see you standing there.
a longtime performer on the St. Louis landscape, Hugh Peanuts Whalum, made a special guest appearance with the smooth jazz musicians.
Here's a St. Louis treasure. And the opportunity to present him on stage at the pageant, instead of playing at some of the nightclubs around town like Brant's, where he plays on a regular basis, was exciting in itself, because we knew that this was going to expose Peanuts Whalum to a much larger audience, because the pageant obviously holds many more people. And a lot of people who came to the pageant for that show were coming for the star names that they recognized, Kirk Whalum being one of them, his nephew. And as Kirk said, Peanuts has been his inspiration, because here's somebody who's done his own thing for such a long time. His vocals, Nat King Cole has nothing on Peanuts Whalum. He's amazing, and he's a great musician.
I will close my eyes and see you with my heart.
Rick Sanbourne is currently on the air at the St. Louis stations owned by MS Communications. Like thousands of other radio personalities, Sanborn once lived a nomadic existence, moving around to whichever city his career would take him. But life is more settled now, and among the constants are his love of St. Louis and his love of smooth jazz, the artists who play it and the fans who support it.
And if we can just keep smooth jazz in front of people in the St. Louis area, then I think the cosmos will take care of the rest.